And I believe one of the looming disasters that you can either make a pile of money from, you can lose a pile of money, or you can just be pushed wherever the world pushes you, is what's going on in commercial real estate right now.
Yes, absolutely. The big news, of course, is COVID and the effects of COVID on many types of real estate, especially office is the type that you hear most about. But the ripples of COVID are extending dramatically into residential real estate as well, and the retail world that is associated with office, the secondary impacts, the downtown retailers, the restaurants, the shops that would cater to the office worker who is just not there.
So this is why I brought in this expert. I focus on residential property. Even in the cities we work in, we focus on cities that are, 75,000 people and less. Joseph, you have a lot of experience working in much larger cities. You work both to help the city sometimes and representing developers.
Yes.
So you see this from every side. You're not just another person that's always going the same way. You have to look at it from both sides to see what really is best.
Yes.
And you also understand commercial real estate. You have a background. We do own a lot of real estate together. Pretty much, yeah, absolutely. All of ours is residential.
Yes.
But you have looked at large commercial projects. What is the difference if we go out and get a loan? If I am buying my own house, a lot of Americans get a 30-year fixed rate mortgage. And where are the people that went out and they got that mortgage? What are they sitting at? 3%, 4% interest right now? Is that how the commercial state goes?
Commercial lending is quite a bit different. Commercial lending usually requires much larger down payments and much shorter terms. So your typical office building is going to have a loan that is due in 5, maybe 7 years, as opposed to 25 or 30 years.
I just wrote a newsletter about this. I'd have to go back and look up. I'm sure I have it linked there. If I'm not mistaken, in the next year and a half, just by the end of 2024, so less than a year and a half, we have $1.5 to $2 trillion of commercial debt that needs rolled over. What that means is it needs completely refinanced. And if I bought a building, let's call it $1 million to make the numbers easy. You're saying I had to put $30,000 down to buy that building.
Or 40, yeah.
So I have 30 or 40, 300 or 400,000 to buy $1 million building, 30 to 40%.
Yes.
Whereas some of most homeowners are putting down 20%, sometimes as little as 5, 10, or next to nothing.
Yes. And the reasoning behind that is that if you are applying for a mortgage to buy a house, they look at your family and your family income and the stability of that income. And if that income is stable and so forth, you're good. When you're looking at an office building that may have a dozen tenants in it, it's very risky for the lender to essentially make a bet that you've got a dozen viable tenants. So they require the property owner to have more skin in the game in the form of a higher down payment.
So what you're saying is we need to know more to invest in commercial real estate than buying these residential properties that we live in.
Yes.
And the owner is taking a lot more risk. So the bank says, well, you're allowed to take the risk, but you're going to protect me by giving a much larger down payment.
Yes. And the other way the lender is going to get protected is they're not going to let you have the property for 30 years. So where in the residential context, a lender who was concerned about the future environment would provide an adjustable rate mortgage. In commercial, most commercial loans, there's not an adjustable rate mortgage. You just have to refinance every 5, 7 years, which is adjustable rate mortgage, however you want to call it.
Right. So we don't have a bump in 3 to 5 years. We have to get an entirely new appraisal. And we're going to come back to figure out, how do they appraise? What is my commercial building really worth? Right after this break.